as I mentioned a few moments ago, is here. Paul's a photojournalist and filmmaker who spent long periods of time on the ground in Ukraine and was in the town of Sumy. Town or city, Paul? Am I describing it correctly?
Hi Sheila. It's a city of about
Right.
250,000 people,
You
and the amount of people still there is not known really.
you spoke with us
But
just a few days ago about the bombing, the very obviously targeted of bombing of civilians in Sumy, and you've been there since, or you've certainly been writing about it since. Tell me what you found and how people are coping.
yeah, I got there about 48 hours after the attack. I mean, just getting to Sumy is difficult from Kyiv because they have kind of got it locked down now. The SBU, the Russian Ukrainian security services, are very wary because to set the scene a bit, the troops who were in Kursk they retreated to Sumy when Kursk got unstable, and with that came a lot of Russian kind of saboteurs and little squads of people that the SBU are hunting. So they are restricting access. Took about an hour to get through the checkpoint, but the actual city, it's a beautiful city on the 30 kilometers from the border. And driving to the scene, it's kind of the sun was out, the cafes were open, and then you come down the main road towards the church, and it opens out. And I mean, I was shocked. I've seen a lot of the attacks in Ukraine, but this was just absolute devastation. The big kind of white, beautiful neoclassical building that had a hole about 60, 70 meters blasted in it, spraying out in all directions, thousands of holes where the steel ball bearings from the cluster munition had hit. The buildings opposite. It was more reminiscent of something in World War II, to be honest. That was the scale of it.
And you
And
mentioned when you spoke to us the other day these cluster munitions, those ball bearings inside it would have gone wherever they went at high speed, and if you were in the line of fire, that was it.
there was no escaping this, Sheila. That's the scale of it. There are hundreds of thousands of these ball bearings in each missile, and there were two missiles. And what they did was a classic double tap strike. So they fired one missile, it landed, killed and injured a lot of people. And then they wait for 5 minutes while the first responders run in and try to deal with the casualties from the first event. And in this case, they waited 5 minutes and then they put another missile in the same spot, which then killed a lot of the first responders and the rescuers. So it's called a double tap. They do one, wait 5 minutes, everyone rushes to the scene, and then they hit them again. It doubles the rate, and as I said the other day, this was the center, the very heart of the town. It was Palm Sunday. You're not going to hit anything other than civilians. There was talk there about there being some soldiers gathered in a building for a military parade, a medal ceremony. But as one civilian said, you know, maybe there were soldiers getting medals, but this is a civilian. It's still a war crime putting missiles in, even if there are soldiers. So
And
they were just worried that would be used to justify what had happened,
and
but in
how are they?
reality,
I was reading your report and seeing some of the photos, because that's, your photos tell a story before you even speak to, there were photos of little children too anxious to go and put flowers on the little memorial that's growing up because they're shocked and horrified at what's happened.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was genuinely heartbreaking. A young girl, I think she perhaps 5 or 6, her mum brought in. She had this little bouquet of flowers, and as in all of these tragedies, a kind of makeshift memorial had sprouted up. Lots of cuddly toys because of the children killed, and flowers, and this girl just froze, and her mum was in tears, and she was kind of, go on, it'll be okay, just put the flowers there, and this poor kid just stood there, and I just think, because all around her there were like workmen and diggers, there were guys cutting trees
And
down.
she'll have felt the shock. Kids
Absolutely,
experience the world with their feelings often, don't they? And she'll have felt the
yeah.
shock that the adults felt when it happened. And
They know something is terribly terribly wrong, and this scene, and then of course all of this going on around you, and then the air raid sirens start, And at that point, everybody, you could see the jolt go through everybody working it.
In
Everyone
case the
stopped.
same was coming.
Absolutely. And, for the last 2 nights, Sumy has had a lot of drones, Serhii drones attacking it. So it's not there's no sense that, oops, we made, because that was Trump's first response to this it was a mistake. He said on Air Force One, oh, it was a terrible mistake. And then I think a few hours later in the White House, he turned around, as the general was just saying, and said, well, Zelensky shouldn't have attacked Russia if he didn't want this to happen. So that, I think all of this makes it harder for Ukraine to sit down and talk about peace. I mean, your cities and civilians have been slaughtered. It's then very difficult to, Putin sees there's no sense. I get no sense that anything is even slightly driving towards peace. All that's happening is...
Well, Trump gave away too much, didn't he, at the very beginning? He was clearly siding with Putin. He was clearly saying the big guy wins. Could the small guy, Zelensky, just move over? That was essentially the message.
Yeah.
From these talks today, to bring it back to those in Paris this afternoon, what do you think, with all of those harsh realities taken into account as well, what's the best we can hope for from these talks after Trump's initial position and even what he said this week is so patently clear?
I look, as much as I would like to be optimistic about this, I see the problem is we got Jonathan Powell. We do have, as I talked about the other day, the skilled negotiators, the people who know how to work and massage these things towards a peace. I think the State Department lost most of its serious diplomats when the election happened. From what I gather, a lot of people jumped ship because there are purges going on. If your loyalty isn't fiercely to Trump, there are purges going on. So I believe on the European side that there are the skilled diplomats capable of bringing about something. I don't know if that's available on the US side. And I think it's also hobbled slightly that whatever they go back with, even if it is progress, it all then revolves around Trump and his rather large ego agreeing to anything. So even if progress is made on a kind of smaller level in Europe, they have to be taken back, and nothing, I get the impression, happens without Trump giving it the golden seal of approval.
He knows he's made all the big talk. He said all the big talk. And the idea that people can bring him down to this may take months, this may take a year, this will involve quiet diplomacy, shut up, and I can't, we'll see.
Whether they have the freedom to operate like that is a completely different matter.
Thank you very much, Paul. Good to talk to you. Paul Conroy, photojournalist and filmmaker who's been in Sumy in eastern Ukraine near the border with Russia.